Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fargonauts. We are back at it with another episode of Twin Peaks. I'm the dream soul of Eric Bradshaw. We also have Tyler here. We also have Wilson here. And, yeah, we're about to continue down our little hoggy hole of Twin Peaks. And, yeah, I don't know if I remember this episode off the top of my head. Do either of you?
Laura's Secret Diary.
Ah, yes.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can pretty fairly guess what might be in this episode just based on like what we saw last time. Like we'll probably see more Harold. We'll probably see more Nadine.
Yeah.
Last time we missed
more Harry Nads, dude.
Harry Nads.
Harold and Nadine.
Yeah. But last time we pointed out that we didn't see like Bobby, Shelley. There was a
well, the ease.
Quite a number of characters that didn't show up. So maybe this is their chance to get a bite at the apple. Little chomp. I said, I half expected it, but Eric fell asleep in the middle of an episode. And the chatter said, it seems like Eric might find the show a bit too relaxing.
That's true, dude. It is. It's way too relaxing.
You might need to plan some caffeine-infused viewing sessions.
Dude, I got caffeine with me right now, dude. Doesn't help. I just get too relaxed. I am in the danger position, too.
Chatter said, that's quite the talent. I hope Eric doesn't miss out on too many key plot points with his legendary sleeping skills. Maybe you can share some of the highlights with him when he wakes up.
There you go. That's it is.
I told it that. I said, well, that happens sometimes. He wakes up a little bit and talks like he's been awake the whole time. And Tyler and I call that talking to his dream soul. And I explained the context of that being a reference to Twin Peaks. And it was like, ha, good one. Yeah, when I first saw this show, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know that was Piper Laurie. But once you know, when you see that right there, you're like, yep. That is the stature of a Piper Laurie female woman. Kind of stands that makes sense character-wise too, because not only would the judge is more familiar with Twin Peaks because he like lives in a mobile home and moves around his area of like jurisdiction and holds his court wherever he means to. So he's familiar with the town. He knows probably some stuff that's happened in the past, but not only that, you're looking at the difference in viewpoints between an investigator and a judge who like gives the summary sentence. And he's the person who's probably handed down like jail time to people or possibly even, like big sentencings to people. And he is the one who directly has to confront and see the outcomes of that, while Dale is only ever looking into the mysteries. So he's like a childlike Boy Scout. Like he never has to deal with like a lot of the repercussions of what these investigations might lead to. That's then put onto the legal system of the lawyers and the judges, etc. It's just I like that though. And you kind of get some of that from Albert too, where his gruffness is more like, hey, I do what I do because it's necessary and it keeps the evil from the door. And I'm kind of an asshole because it's not pleasant work, but I'm doing this because I like people. There is a mishmashing of cultures though that is going on, because you've got like certainly indigenous or Native American stuff with a lot of the designs that are in the Great Northern and Hawk, and that like you were saying, like Northeast Pacific Northwest lumberjack, like the Harold Smith wearing a flannel with tweed pants and suspenders and the sweaters that all these people are wearing. And then you've got like Dick, who's like, it's the European way, and it's like, yeah. And then you get Dale bringing in the stuff from Tibet and like a Buddhism skew to it. There's definitely a melding of cultural influences here. I guess it's further down the line, but I don't remember what specifically, like what culture tulpas might originate from. I think as we continue on, there will be even more, whether it's cultural or not, I don't know, but more influences will start to appear. Let's go down a tangent for just a second, okay? Indulge me on this. So a hotel, motel, whatever it is, that is kind of a liminal space. You go there to be, it is meant to be a point between two places, right? And the Great Northern, if this place, which is in and of itself, the concept of it is a liminal space and it opens itself up to that kind of thing. If it's constructed with wood from an area that like geographically might be tied to more spiritual energy, or I don't know. Week to week, like episode to episode, we've seen, gosh, there was the singing barbershop quartet, there was the cheerleader squad, and now we have the lumber queens. I bet if we went back, we could notice more like visiting groups or specific numbers of people appearing in this place time after time after time. A bunch of people in this one specific style of clothing that is meant to denote that they're like a glee club or some other form of group that is visiting the Great Northern this week. All of that are ways of communicating to us, the audience, that like the town of Twin Peaks, the whole area, and the Great Northern specifically, especially with what happens like at the end of season 2 with Josie, and then how this place, like Josie's soul gets stuck in the drawer pull because this place is just such a fucking supernatural magnet. It attracts real groups of people that come in, they have their experiences and they leave, and who knows what gets left of that visitation or experience gets left at that location. And that continues into the return, where spooky stuff keeps happening at the Great Northern, and it directly relates to how Dale continues with his efforts in his investigations and shit. So it's like there's so many different things. And I posted a link to an article or like a blog that somebody had written about something we discussed before, like Josie's presence in this show and what there was stuff that they had shot but never got into the show, or was scripted but was never shot, that plays into Judy or Josie being more of an overtly, like you should be more overtly questioning, like, what the fuck is going on with Josie? Yeah, it's very clearly a manipulation and a tactic that she's doing, because she does it all the fucking time. Whenever he asks a question about something, she just deflects it, and then it's like, oh, kiss me, or I have to go. But that's her interacting with the other people in the show, and very, very rarely does she let that drop and like become a hardened or a more serious kind of person. And outside of that, we get to see her as the audience. The characters in the show don't get to see her as this, but we get to see her being this like weirdly looming presence, where in the first episode, the very fucking first character that we see in the show is Josie sitting in front of the mirror putting on lipstick, and it's like a slightly like mysterious, sultry, there's something to that. And then that one scene where like Ben and Catherine are talking in the Great Northern, and apparently Josie's also at the Great Northern, just in a different, we just cut to her like 2 times, and all she is just sitting in the dark silently smoking. She doesn't say anything. It, like, what man, the roadhouse too, this whole fucking town being built out of, and we see the logging trucks always going through the town, and the sawmill and all that. They live in a patch of ground that is just like tuned into some spooky stuff, and they're building their buildings out of the trees that grow out of that ground, and they're staying there. It's just crazy. So I think that we kind of do have to make that assumption, though, because we hear from the log lady, at least her opinion is that her husband is in the log, or that like there's something in there that's communicating. I think we're meant to assume that it's her husband. And then we get like a confirmation that that interaction between the human consciousness or soul or whatever you want to call it, and Wood does happen. We watch it happen. And in that blog that I posted, there are things that were scripted, or like there are things that were scripted but not shot, and there were things that were shot but didn't actually make it into the final thing. Frank Silva, the guy who played Bob at one of these big fan meetup interview things, he was doing a Q&A and somebody asked him something about Bob and Josie's relationship, and he said that there was a lot of stuff. There was some stuff that they filmed of Josie being in the Red Room when Dale goes in there at the very end of the show, and we see Josie, but we don't ever see like her face. We only see her form and her body in the last outfit that she was seen wearing, but her head is like, we only see her shoulders down, and her head is stuck through the curtains, as if maybe she's like pierced the veil and is screaming out through the door. I don't know. Yeah. And so since we do see that happen in the show, me personally, my interpretation is fuck yeah, man. Every single piece of wood that you see is like open season for whether or not there's spirits in there. One of the things that was in an early script that they revised and never shot it, but the fact that it was in one of the early scripts is, to me, meaningful with what we did get, is that after Josie gets trapped in the drawer pull, because that's like episode, it's very close to the end, one of the last 3-4 episodes, or maybe more than that, but it's very close to the end. Later on, after that happened, Ben Horn is in the Great Northern in his office, and he like looks at the fireplace and has this reaction to it, like he's clearly having something to react to within the fireplace, right? And then we cut from that to Pete in the lobby of the Great Northern, and he is also staring at the fireplace in the lobby, but Pete says, "Josie, I can see your face." So in an earlier script, that whole thing happened, and it's like, yeah, if her spirit is trapped in the wood of the lodge, then clearly she would be able to like manifest in certain ways, and fire being a thing to cross barriers or bring energy forth between these two worlds. Yeah. The Glastonbury Grove, where the pool of oil and all that stuff is, where Dale crosses in the Black Lodge, that's like a geographical point in space and time. And then you've got, what was the other place called? Jackrabbit, something like that, where Andy goes in to the White Lodge in, or at least the fireman's place in The Return. That's another and then the Rock in The Return, where Mr. C goes with his the little shithead, or Buenos Aires, where Philip Jeffries disappears. There are seemingly specific points in space and time where these portals or places of less boundary between the two worlds exists. And if Twin Peaks is one of those, yeah, what the hell does that mean for all these people and all the stuff that's happening here? Well, this was a good episode, and I'm going to say this one more time, just because I don't think this was said while we were recording, but this having just watched this episode, like right away when we started with that shot of how we do the establishing shot of pulling out of that hole, it immediately put me in a point in time where I was like, oh, this episode. And I'm saying that my remembrance is that this episode is where the show starts to have more of a majority of darker and unsettling and supernatural elements, and it will continue to have less of the sillier elements. They're still going to be there, but I think predominantly the takeaway from these episodes going forward is going to be that one of like spookiness, negativity, mystery, all those things. If anybody else out there is watching Twin Peaks, what do you think? When are there like changes and shift? You know, when does the wind turn? because that's what this is. This is a discussion, mainly between the three of us, but hopefully also between anybody else who's watching. Chime in, give us your 2 cents, ask questions, give us your interpretations, because I think that the best thing about this show is that it is left open to so many different interpretations that it's really interesting to hear people's thoughts.
Let's talk about that wood.
If we get enough comments on the entirety of this Twin Peaks review that we're doing, I'll do some sort of like, we'll make sure that Broadshow's asleep, and then I'll sit down and we'll put on like the 4K fireplace in the background, and I'll just read to him all the questions and comments from the viewers. Or like, I don't, what would you like us to communicate to Eric in his sleep to influence his unconscious mind? This episode was, well, it's kind of unfair because I literally just gave ChatGPT the titles of every single episode today, so I do have a little bit of an unfair advantage. I'm gonna have to try and think from memory what came after episode 5. So Laura's Secret Diary. Oh dang, it's not the Orchid's Curse, is it? Ooh, I got it. Look at me use my memory. I did that. Because of I was going through a rewatch of Twin Peaks months ago. This is probably even like a year ago by now. And I didn't get all the way through. I was going to do what we're doing here, season 1, 2, Fire Walk with Me, The Return, and I didn't even get all the way through 2. I kind of just like, life got busy and I fell off and I didn't continue watching it. But it did get me going down the rabbit hole enough where I listened to the audio format of The Secret History again. And then from that, I went and I looked at other novels and books that have been published by people about UFOs and UFO abductions and other topics that directly came from the wellspring of Twin Peaks. And so I definitely think that that's going to happen again. I think that when we get further into this, there will come up, probably after Fire Walk with Me, when we're getting to The Return, there's going to be a point where I'm like, I need to go fucking full, I was about to say Harold Hill, but that's the Music Man, The Aviator. I need to go full Howard Hughes and just like lock myself in a room with only Twin Peaks sources and just write stuff on the walls in my own fecus and come in with the pie, come in with the pie, come in with the pie, come in with the coffee, come in with the coffee, come in with the
Yeah.